In the girls' toy game, no one has banked more cheese than Barbie. Mattel has made billions of dollars off of her, and it's led to movies, shows, and even video games. And while a few competitors have had similar peaks to Barbie, none have lasted nearly as long. But this is not by chance. The original Barbie actually looked a lot different than the version that we've had for decades. And through research, luck, and sticking with what works, it's become a nearly perfect product to appeal to girls. But what exactly is it about Barbie that they like so much? I think in talking about this, we can learn a lot about how people of different demographics think, and what our basic needs are as people. So, let's get into it. Now, this was a slightly tricky topic for me to figure out. After all, it's not my demographic, and I normally like to start with looking at my own emotions, and figuring out why they are the way they are. But, fortunately, that's not the only way we can learn about these things. Because on large enough scales, people's behavior starts to become consistent and even understandable. The trick to it is to recognize what people are actually trying to do in life. Like we said, we're built for two main purposes: to survive and to have children. And if you can see what we need to do those well, a lot of weird things that people do turn out not to be weird at all. And likewise, though you may not realize it from the way they act in school, children's main purpose is to grow and learn. Playing, exercising, and finding role models are all forms of building up their bodies and developing their minds. It just so happens that what we try to teach them in school is not what they naturally want to learn. Abstract math, historical facts, and so on have no clear benefit to them, while going out and exploring, practicing at hunting and running away, and other things do. And each of those activities serves a clear purpose to those overall goals we have, mainly surviving to become adults and having children of our own. Those are the two main things that children are naturally preparing themselves to do. But each of those things requires slightly different traits to do it best. Survival depends on physical strength, endurance, building, hunting, defending, and so on. Having children depends on your fertility, having a strong social group, a great sense of caring and empathy, and things like that. But both of them are essential to people. And it turns out that among many other chemicals in our bodies, testosterone and estrogen put us into the mode to do one or the other. Physically in terms of how our bodies develop, and mentally in terms of what we find pleasurable. And of course, there are men and women who fall on both sides of the spectrum, but a lot of boys lean towards learning survival and finding role models and practicing situations that allow them to do it, and a lot of girls lean towards reproducing and finding role models and practicing at creating the best situation for that. And that part of existence, having the best situation for having children, is what Barbie represents to young girls. Barbie traditionally has a certain physical form. Now, of course, how you look isn't the same as being happy or being worthwhile in life, but Barbie's age and physical shape are always the one that we naturally associate with having children. And so, if we instinctively, as children, are looking to find someone who represents that to follow and learn from for that part of life, we'll gravitate towards a person with that appearance. But that's pretty straightforward. What may not be is the colors that always surround Barbie. Because originally, Barbie wore black and white, but that was eventually changed to pink and purple, and kept that way. But why is that? I've heard some pretty crazy explanations for it, but I found something a little bit different. Pink and purple are colors that you see in spring and summer, and almost always on blooming flowers, which obviously girls like too. But why? Traditionally, certain places allowed us to care for children more easily. These include, like we've talked about, fresh water, open spaces so you can see what's coming, and just as importantly, good weather, so you don't have to worry as much about shelter or clothes. And in that weather, plants make the most fruit, seeds, and other important things. But of course, you can't eat flowers. So why would you like those instead of just fruit? Well, for one, flowers are more plentiful than fruit trees. But there's more to it, because both fruit and flowers indicate to you that a place has good conditions. However, most flowers tend to require much better conditions to grow than fruit trees. So flowers can be, in some ways, a long-term weather report for any place you may visit. On top of that, flowers are very light and delicate plants. Large animals will trample them, so they give you a hint about whether creatures of a dangerous size come to that area. So if you stay in areas where there are plenty of flowers around, you're much more likely to be safe and able to survive and raise children. So, bright good weather colors and flowery pink and purple are naturally attractive to anyone with an inherent interest in having children. which most girls naturally do have. And on top of that, Barbie's life situation is an ideal adulthood from a child's perspective. Barbie has no parents, so she can do whatever she wants. She has a huge and beautiful house, meaning large territory with plenty of resources and space, and plenty of friends, but none of it requires upkeep. She has a job, but never actually has to go to work. It's mainly just a pretty uniform she sometimes puts on. Likewise, she has a boyfriend named Ken with a cool car, but there's no icky physical stuff. He just comes by every now and then, agrees that he's her boyfriend, and leaves, which is all you want out of a relationship if you're 6 years old. And in fact, that's the general principle. Everything she has is in the colors and appearance that girls find safest and most naturally attractive, while having none of the stuff that they would find boring, negative, confusing, or gross. So, when you take it all together, it makes sense. Our natural feelings seek out these situations and make us want to study the people who live in them, to see how they achieved it or keep it going, and pretend to do it ourselves so we can learn about it. All is part of preparing us for adulthood, or at least the adulthood that's been the most common for us in the past. So, it might be best to know that while the world changes, the things we naturally want stay consistent, and it's best that we're able to work with them. Thanks for your time, and we'll talk again soon.